Assalamualaikum and good day. We are Group 3 from Geotechnics II Section 6 class, and this is our project's presentation video.
Alright, before we go through for the entire project, let me start with the introduction first. Based on the Australian environmental education, soil is a thin layer of material that forms on the Earth's surface as a result of the erosion of rocks. It is primarily composed of mineral particles, organic materials, air, water and living beings, all of which interact slowly yet continuously. When the shear stress in the soil surpasses the soil shear strength, the soil will collapse and is referred as a soil failure. There are many different forms of soil failure, and one of them is slope failure. A natural or man-made soil slope is an inclined surface of a soil mass. Highways, dams, rivers, canals, and slope paths are example structures that are developed by sloping the lateral sides of the soil since it is less expensive than erecting walls. Natural faults alter the frames of Earth, frequently resulting in unstable slope. A slope failure is a situation which a slope collapse unexpectedly owing to the Earth's weakened self-retardability as a result of a rainfall or an earthquake.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Patricia Tizkifli. So I'm going to proceed our presentation with the technique of slope stability for fault tree analysis technique. Fault tree analysis is a logical and diagrammatic method for determining the chances of an accident caused by a series of defects and failure occurrence. Employed the FTA technique to evaluate the pipe-burst incident in Bukit Antarabangsa, Ampang, Selangor. Next is FTA is used because it employs logic and Boolean algebra to identify events that are responsible for causing undesirable outcomes. The relationship between the event is reflected in the fault tree's qualitative construction. And the last one is a quantified fault tree is a method that depicts how events affect the incident of the top fault event.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Alfian Firdaus. So I will explain about the technique of slope stability. So basically our project was chosen two drainage which are siphon drainage principle and also electropneumatic drainage principle. So for the siphon drainage principle, so it is excessive groundwater levels within the unstable soil mass are one of the main causes of landslide. So as we can see here, the drainage is a tested an effective method of landslide prevention. So the siphon will move and drain water out of the wall if the water level in the wall increases. If the flow rate in the siphon is adequate to maintain the siphon charge, the flow will continue until the water levels in the wall fall. So the pressure reduces as the water climbs to the top of the siphon and it may reach a perfect vacuum. Low pressure causes tiny bubbles to develop in the upstream portion. Further downstream, these bubbles tend to combine into larger ones. The bubbles are affected by two forces, which is buoyancy and hydraulic force caused by the flow through the pipe. Next, for the technique of slope stability, we have electropneumatic drainage. So the electropneumatic pump was created to help stabilize landslide by capturing groundwater at greater depths or reducing it to lower levels that siphon drain system could. Electropneumatic drains are related to siphon drains in that they have a network of manholes and ducting for electrical wiring, water runoff pipes, and compressed air supply. To achieve its central position and filtering of incoming water, the wells are provided with slotted PVC well covering with an internal diameter of 110 mm as well as centralizers and fine gravel filters. A water level detector is attached to an electrical line that runs through the duct to a control panel. So the operation of the compacted air pumps is controlled by a circuit and solenoid in the control panels. And lastly is the compacted air supply is controlled by the solenoid switch, which allows it to flow from the air compressor and its air tank to the compressed air inlet tube to the pump.
Here we go to the next part, which is the application of standard. Slope failures are typical in many places of the world and may occur for a variety of causes, resulting in massive losses to the locals. This part will analyze the efforts that can improve slope safety by taking into account the correct methods to deal with the elements that causes slope instability. For this part, we have 5 methods that we propose, which is the first one is retaining structure methods, then use retaining wall, plant vegetation on steep slopes and embankments, building terrace, and last but not least, shotcrete. All these 5 methods will explain in more detail later. Okay, now we explain in more detail about the 5 methods that we propose. First one, retaining structure. Retaining structure are applied in this manner to withstand enterprising pressure of the soil masses. Gravity and cantilever retaining walls, contiguous board piles, and occasional soil nailing used to stabilize slopes are all examples of a retaining structure. Gravity retaining walls, cantilever retaining walls, contiguous board piles, Casian steel sheet piles, ground anchors, soil nets, and other retaining structures are also examples of retaining structures. Next, use retaining walls. Retaining walls are moderately hard barriers that hold soil laterally, allowing it to be maintained at various levels on both sides. Retaining walls are constructions that are built to maintain soil on a slope that it would not normally stay on. They are used to join soils between two distinct altitudes, which is common in terrain with unfavorable slopes, or in locations where the landscape must be sculpted forcefully and designed for more specialized purposes such as hillside farming or roadway overpasses. Next, plant vegetation on steep slope and embankments. As land development happens in hilly countrysides, more erosion controls on steep slopes and embankment is needed, particularly in places prone to severe rains. Steep slopes and embankments with no vegetation or cover are especially prone to erosions. Erosions can harm not only the scenery, but also any infrastructure near the project. Planting plants is the most efficient and natural approach to minimize soil erosion on steep slopes and embankments. The grapes, fissures, and leaves will not only aid to slow down the raindrops as they fall, but the roots on the plants will also serve to hold the soil together, making it more difficult for water to flow away. Building terraces. Terraces are usually utilized for recreational purposes such as sitting, walking, or relaxing. An elevated space in front of a great building or construction that is generally approached by a great staircase and encircled by a railing. A terrace can be supported by a natural or man-made embankment or solid foundations. Terrace can also be platforms supported by columns but with no space below filled in. All the terraces are always open to the sky and can be paved or not. Another method for better solution is to construct terrace. Last but not least, shotcrete. Shotcrete is a method of putting concrete on a vertical or oval surface by projecting it at high velocity. The applique's impact helps to solidify the concrete. Although the hardness qualified to shotcrete are comparable to those of the cast-in-place concrete, the nature of the placement process results in an excellent bond with the most substrates as well as quick or immediate capabilities, especially on complicated forms or shapes. Shotcretes requires less formwork and can be less expensive than traditional lead concrete. Shotcrete import in either way wet or dry mix.
Next will be the long-term stability of slope remedial technique for fault threat analysis. This technique justifies the need for human reliability analysis in the geotechnical profession. In order to prevent or mitigate the implications of slope failures, this study constructed a fault threat analysis of crucial situations responsible for slope failures. On the top figure, it shows the classes of probability of occurrence. Next is fault threat analysis logics to predict the likelihood of failure of specific design, construction, and maintenance subtasks. On the bottom figure, it shows the probability of failures of selected scenarios. For example, scenarios for development plans it shows 0.75 probability of failure, and etc. Based on the fault tree analysis approach, which is highly maintained and properly analyzed by the researcher and the engineers, it will be able to maintain slope stability for an extended period of time.
I will continue the presentation and explain about the long-term stability of slope drainage technique. For slope drainage technique, we have two techniques, which is siphon drainage principle and electropneumatic drainage principle. For siphon drainage principle, an attempt to construct a siphon drainage system necessitates a true understanding of the factors affecting the drainage system performance in lowering the groundwater table in the landslide area. The effectiveness of the siphon drainage system with vertical wells to maintain the stability of landslide masses in Bukit Antarabangsa, Ampang, Selangor is evaluated during our studies and research to determine the long-term stability of this technique. The levels of groundwater in each well as well as the water discharge from each well were investigated. And according to our research, the siphon drainage system was usually effective in lowering the groundwater level in the landslide, with a minimum total drainage flow ranging from 3 cm per hour to 7 cm per hour, but it was projected to range between 10.94 cm per hour and 915.05 cm per hour during the slope failure. And during the rainfall, the constructed siphon drainage system kept the groundwater level from rising. The siphon drainage boosts the long-term stability of landslide areas significantly. According to a series of slope stability calculation conducted in a steady and steady state seepage condition. For electropneumatic drainage principle, this principle is just like the siphon drains, consists of a pump, a network of manholes, ducting for electrical cabling, and piping for water discharge at the manhole. It also requires compressed air as storage tank, dryers, and filters, as well as a control panel to operate the electropneumatic pumps. At the desired drawdown depth, an electropneumatic pump is fitted in each well. A relay and solenoid on the control panel govern the operation of the compressed air supply to each pump. The compressed air supply is controlled by the solenoid switch, which allows it move from the air compressor and its air tank to the compressed air input tube and then the pump. An air dryer and filter dry the air before it enters the solenoid. A water level sensor in the pump is connected to electrical cable that's run through the duct of control panel. When the well's groundwater level rises, it feeds the pump chamber via a non-return ball valve at the bottom, and two electrical sensors in the pump chamber regulate the operation of the pump. And the relay, which the open solenoid is linked to these two sensors. On top of that, the compressed air enters the pump chamber by intake air tube, filling it with air and forcing out through the outlet tube to the ground surface, where it is discharged into the manhole. A non-return ball valve pushes away water from returning the pumping chamber, and a small control building normally houses air compressors, air storage tanks, and control panel, and is usually positioned near to the drainage network. SCADA, Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition systems are meant to remotely monitor the operation of the control panel as well as the performance of the pump and well drawdown efficiency.
Hi, my name is Umar Hamza, matrix number CF190168, and I'll be continuing on with the final part of our presentation video. So to conclude our Geotechnics II project, I believe that it is safe to say that slope failure is an important factor to consider nowadays, especially these days when rampant slope-related developments are everywhere, from highways to dams to levees and the like. Geotechnical engineering helps engineers to identify the many causes and solutions regarding slope failures. Remedial work, or sometimes known as slope stability, are any implemented techniques aimed at stabilizing an unstable slope. For our project, the slope stabilizing methods we proposed are fault tree analysis technique, drainage technique, retaining structure methods, and vegetable planted slope terrace. Stability of the slope is expected to withstand within its operational lifespan with the help of fault tree analysis' regular supervision to determine any immediate possible failures, which we can then take actions to solve. That is all for our presentation video. We hope you enjoyed and understand. Thank you.